This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we are definitely doing a combination of making your business and yourself as successful as possible. And this really is going to be so much fun. I was reading my guest's new book that just came out yesterday. Whoa, can't get much more newer than that. And really thinking, oh, this is going to be so much fun to talk to my guest. So please join me in welcoming Jonathan Kaiser to our program today. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me. It's been an honor to be invited, and looking forward to this conversation very much.
Well, it really is going to be so much fun, and we were having a great time chatting off the air and had to, kind of drag ourselles back into actually have to do this for real. Someday I should record all of those and just have a whole big thing on outtakes. But okay, down to business, Jonathan. Let me tell people just a little bit about you. So today's guest, as I have said, is Jonathan Kaiser, the inspiring founder and thought leader behind Kaiser, Arizona's largest commercial real estate brokerage firm. With more than 18 years of experience in the industry, Jonathan excels at designing and implementing unique solutions to complex real estate challenges. Under his guidance, Kaiser has become one of the fastest growing CRE firms in the country, largely driven by Jonathan's disruptive focus on selfless service as the key to success. Jonathan's selfless service model resonates with corporations and individuals seeking a competitive edge to acquiring and maintaining clients. Jonathan is living out his passion of inspiring selfless service in others through his new book, as I mentioned, fresh off the presses, You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win, as well as from the stage, speaking to thousands of professionals at industry and charity events across the nation. Jonathan is here today to share his journey, mission, and selfless service model to empower each of us to succeed. Again, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I just want to clarify one thing. We are the largest firm of our kind in the state. There are some big multinational firms that are much larger than us. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure I don't misspeak. But you have an amazing show. You have an amazing story. And I'm honored to be on it. And I really enjoyed getting to know you more as we got ready for this podcast.
Right. And that's what's so much fun is I get to meet some of the coolest people. People are always saying to me, what do you get out of doing your program? I get to meet way cool people, and so that's what's so much fun about this.
Hopefully I live up to the standard.
I know, we've set that bar high. So, but that is kind of part of it is we all have to set those bars high. Sometimes we set them really low. Or we're like, okay, we can just be average. Average is okay. Or somebody said, how are you doing? Fine. How was the service you got? Fine. And fine and average are what's accepted now. And it shouldn't be. We should want to hit it out of the park every single time. And are we going to? No. I mean, we're all human. But part of it is our internal thought processes as we're doing all of this. It's great to make money. We like money. Yeah, wait. But at the same point, if we're not feeling good about what we're doing, it doesn't matter. I mean, we could be gazillionaires and make the top of all those lists. But if we're not happy with ourselves, it doesn't matter. And that's really what is behind your story. But let's start at the beginning. How did this come to be? Tell us a little bit more about Jonathan.
Sure. So I have a very unique story that a lot of people, I think, resonate with because while my experiences are very different, I think people can resonate because they've gone through a lot of the same journey themselves. I was raised by extraordinary parents. I was a missionary kid, and my family, I just had an amazing family reunion that we hosted at our home with people flying in from all over the world. We had 80 people in our house this last weekend, and it was a reminder to me of how much of my family is out in the world selflessly serving others. And so as a missionary kid, I was raised to love and serve and help and give and go above and beyond and always put others first. When I got back from the mission field, so I was in Papua New Guinea, and I was there until I was 11. And for those of you who don't know where Papua New Guinea is, it's the middle of nowhere. It is not on many maps, but it was a very unique experience for me to grow up, part of my life in that area. I got to see what a culture that was 20 years out of the Stone Age was like. And it really gave me a perspective that I think a lot of Americans don't have. I don't have this sort of rigid worldview that a lot of Americans that are very U.S.-centric have. I have much more of a, understanding all sides of the living paradigm. So when we came back from Papua New Guinea, and when I was 11, I had this rude awakening. And that's kind of where it all started, where I'd been taught to love and serve. I've been taught to help others. It was modeled for me in my home. And then I come back to the U.S. and I realize that I'm broke and that our family is really, really poor. Because in Papua New Guinea, everybody's poor. So, in fact, we probably had more than others because people would send us stuff from the States that we'd get and hand me down in crates. And so that realization really stuck with me, Deb. It was one of those things where I decided at an early age, I don't want to be poor. I don't like being broke. I want the stuff that other people had. So without even having the self-realization to, sure, I can look back now and say, hey, I made these, deep internal decisions. But the reality is at the time, I just knew I wanted success and I didn't want to be poor.
And so, kids can be so cruel.
Oh, man.
Especially if you're looking at somebody and going, what, you wore that? Ooh, or what do you mean you have your lunch in a bag?
Well, yeah, it's not only, so I love that you said that, Deb. So not only was I not cool with my clothes because they were all hand-me-downs and used stuff from the donation box, but I didn't have any sense of style. Wow, some people argue I still don't, but I didn't have any real sense of style. So to me, having been overseas, their favorite kind of shirts were these like big Hawaiian style shirts. So here I am in this little bit cowboy town wearing these flashy hand-me-down Hawaiian shirts, and everybody thought I was just nuts. So that created this deep sense within me of I'm going to be successful and I'm not going to be poor. And this whole idea of helping other people with my life, like my whole family had done, was out the window for me. I wanted nothing to do with that whole philosophy. So went to college. I was going to be an attorney, but my favorite professor talked me out of it. I stumbled into commercial real estate because somebody said, if you do this, you can have your own private jet someday. And I got so excited about the idea of having a private jet that I got in. Plus, when I went to interview, Deb, it was one of those things where I walk in the door and first of all, I walk past all these BMWs and Mercedes and Audis, and I'm like, okay, I like that. And then I get in and this fancy office space and everybody's in these suits looking all amazing. And then I look at their desks and they have these beautiful families on these picturesque vacations. And I'm like, I want that.
Put me there now.
So I got into commercial real estate because I wanted to be rich. I wanted to make money. But I didn't really realize what I was getting myself into. I had no idea how ruthless and cutthroat the industry really was. So I jumped right in all, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I had a really rude awakening where I realized really quickly, wow, this is a ruthless industry. And, everyone around me modeling different variants of that ruthlessness. And so I learned really fast, swim with the sharks or be eaten. And so I became very, very ruthless intentionally because I felt like that was what it took to be successful. So if you slow it down, here I was raised, taught to love and serve. Mm-hmm. I saw the results from my not yet advanced mindset of just that poor. I didn't see the impact that they were having. I just felt like there was no money in it. Mm-hmm. Then I see what it takes to be successful. So I decide that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, and I'm an overachiever, Deb. Mm-hmm. When I do something, I tend to do it more wholeheartedly than most. Mm-hmm. I became arguably one of the most ruthless commercial real estate brokers in the country. Mm. And everything was about me. Mm-hmm. I was trying to steal leads as much as possible. I would fight, scratch, and claw over commissions. I would talk clients into things that were not in their best interest because it would make me more commission. And again, this was, to me, I wasn't even doing anything wrong. It was just, this is the way
it was what was expected. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if you talk to a lot of people, they say, well, JK was kind of on the worst end. Well, yeah, I was. Mm-hmm. But that was, that's a behavior that as people read my book, they go, man, I've had that same experience. And so, you know, I got into the mode of whatever it took to be successful, mm-hmm. I was willing to do. Mm-hmm. But deep down, Deb, when I was laying in bed, quiet, I was miserable.
Right.
You know,
that wasn't how you were brought up.
Yeah, I was so fundamentally misaligned with my core values. I was torn, right? I felt trapped. On one hand, I felt like this is what I needed to do to be successful. And on the other hand, I felt like I was kind of selling my soul. Like I was just a used car salesman trying to sell as, apologies to any used car salesman out there. I'm sure there's lots of good ones, but you know, it's the same kind of basic, whatever it takes to sell it. And how much can you sell the car for versus, you know, what's in the best interest of the client. So here I was in this, for 5 years, I'm in the industry just torn between what my heart's telling me is right and what my mind is telling me I want to do in the world and create wealth-wise. Mm-hmm. So about 15 years ago, it all changed. So I go to this industry conference and this guy gets up. And you know how you go to these conferences and you sign up for the different breakout sessions? This is what one of those was. Mm-hmm. I think it was called networking. So I'm like, that sounds like something I could just kind of.
Yeah, we all need to build our networks.
Yeah, sure. I'll learn a little bit about networking. And plus, I was probably going to sleep halfway through it. But I get in there and I'm riveted by the topic. It's this guy who is talking about a different way of doing business, about how to create success by serving and helping other people. And I was blown away. I'd never heard anything like it. He sounded like my parents. Mm-hmm. He's also a badass. And I'm like, how is this badass sounding like my parents? It makes no sense.
You can't combine the two. No. Mm-hmm.
So I go up afterwards. So I was just transfixed. I was like glued to this, to my chair and just staring at him, just listening. And the whole time I'm thinking, this guy's not for real. Like, this is just a shtick. There's no way he actually does this. And so I go up afterwards and I kind of wait in line because people are wanting to talk to him. And I say, is this really true? Like, do you really do this? Or is this just something you tell people?
Right. Said, you get to give lots of fun speeches.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is just, you know. And because I'm used in commercial real estate to saying whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. Your whole goal is to look good. It's not about being good. It's about how good do you look. So you live this fake life of like pretending to be one person and really underneath it being another. So I just assumed it was more of that. But I saw the sincerity in him and his responses. And he said, no, this is how I've built my business. And I said, well, how is that even possible? And he said, Jonathan, think about it like this. Think about what you're doing today. Is you're hunting. You're getting your gun off the shelf every day. You're going out. You're shooting your prey. You're bringing it back, cleaning it, eating it, and then you got to get up the next morning and do it all over again. Mm-hmm. Because what I'm describing is a business model which is more like farming, where you're planting seeds. Call them citrus trees. We have a lot of citrus trees here in Arizona. I have one in my backyard that when I first planted it, it was this tiny little pain-in-the-butt tree. And I always thought it was going to die, and it gave me no fruit.
You're going to mow over it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I kept nurturing it, and now today, it's almost a nuisance how many lemons come off that tree. I can't give them away. And that's what he described. He described this idea of investing in people and investing in relationships and paying it forward with them and looking for ways to serve them.
Right.
And worrying about yourself last. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at him, and I go, okay, well, if this is really true, and this really works, mm-hmm. how come no one else is doing this?
Yeah.
You know?
None of the books are being written about it. And,
This is some like,
Buffett does not talk about this.
why is it so hidden?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, because it takes too long. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, it'll take you about 5 years to reinvent yourself around this philosophy. And most people don't have the patience, right? It's
they have to eat and all of those other things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I said, so you're telling me that if I do this relentlessly, which is basically the only way I do anything, that in 5 years, I could have success, because he described it as when you do it this way, instead of having to go sell, people come to you. You create a referral model where people, because of how much you've helped them in the community, have the whole community looking for ways to help you back. And I thought that just sounded so cool. It sounded like the missing piece that I had not seen with my parents, right? All I saw was the outgoing. I didn't see the incoming, and I didn't realize that was even possible. So I thought about it some more, talked to one other person who was doing it, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And I flew back to Arizona, threw my old business plan away, and I just got involved in the community, and I started helping everybody that I could. And people thought I was crazy.
Right. Because they're thinking, wait a minute, what do you want in exchange?
Everybody thought it was like, it took a lot of time for people, one, to realize I didn't just hit my head on a trip. You know, here I was the National Rookie of the Year for Grubb and Ellis. And now all of a sudden I looked like I'm a community concierge, just out asking every business person I bump into what I can do to help them. But also, in the interactions with people are like looking at me like, what do you mean? How can you help me? You know, I don't have a, because what I do is I help companies with their real estate leases. And so they'd be like, well, I don't have a real estate lease coming up. I don't have a need for space, or I don't want to buy a building.
So why would I even talk to you?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like I'm building a model where all I want to do is help as many people in the community, because I believe that over a long term, it'll all come back. So I'm not looking for anything in return. What do you need? Do you have, do you have any kids? Well, yeah, we have kids. Do any of your kids need jobs? They'd be like, well, actually, yeah. Or, well, we're looking, Mom, my wife has cancer and I'm looking for a good doctor. That's happened multiple times. We need more business for our firm. So I spent more time doing business development
for others than
I was doing for myself. And what I found that most people want the most is connection.
Right.
And in a world of LinkedIn and Facebook and others, there's this idea that if we have a bunch of likes and we have a lot of connections, that we're somehow connected. But the reality is we're not. And we're actually less connected. And so what I spent most of my time, and still to this day, spend the majority of my time doing, is helping other business leaders connecting people to improve and increase their network. And that journey, that work is some of the most fulfilling work that I think anybody can do. There's a level of joy. There's a level of gratitude. There's a level of fulfillment that comes when you're spending your time helping other people. It's hard to describe. And it's even cooler when you realize that the more you do of that, the more it comes back. So back to my story, here I am out in the community asking everybody, how can I help you? How can I help you? They called me the coffee, breakfast, lunch, and dinner guy, because everywhere I went, I was out trying to meet with people and ask them the same question. And as you can imagine, ideas are cute at first. And over time, when they're not making money in the traditional firm environment, which I was in, it became less cute. And so, the pressure increased on me to kind of go back to the traditional model, because it wasn't having results prior to that 5 years. But I was just committed, right? I just could feel it. I knew that this was going to work, because one, I'd seen two people now that had demonstrated that it could be done. So I had examples in front of me, but also I could feel it deep down that the impact I was having was resonating with people, and that every act of service was having an impact. And so I just kept doing it and just tried to, when you talk about resilience, the the ability to keep doing what you believe you should be doing when everyone else is kind of poo-pooing it is really, that was a test for me. It was a big challenge. And just like he had predicted, it took me about 5 years, Deb. Wow. It was about 5 years of just serving and giving and, you know, scraping the bottom of the bank account just to survive. But after 5 years, it was almost like magic. I had planted so many seeds that had matured, and people now knew that this wasn't a flash in the pan, that I was sincere, and that I became the go-to guy where everybody's like, hey, you need anything? Call Jonathan. That crazy. Help with anything you need. And so I started getting all these referrals and calls that were unsolicited, and some of them were just for me to help them with other acts of service or help their friends or families. But some of them were commercial real estate. So they call and say, hey, Jonathan, my company, you know, we're growing. We need more space. I hear you're a guy that helps people. I also hear that you only represent users, occupiers, tenants of space, not landlords and developers. Can you help me? So I'm used to being in commercial real estate. I'm used to having to go pitch and tell how great I am. And here's my resume. And here's all the big deals I've done. Here I have people just coming to me saying, hey, I've heard good things about you. Can you help me?
Right.
And that started this extraordinary journey where I went from kind of laughing stock, honestly, at my last company to top producer. And now the problem was how do I scale this, right? How do I go from JK, what does people call me, by the way, my kind of nickname, Jonathan Kaiser. How do I go from just JK's team, me and a couple others, to scale?
Right. Bless you.
So that started a lot of self-reflection. That started a lot of internal analysis to figure out what I really wanted to do. And then in 2012, I had an epiphany moment where I realized in a flash at an early morning meditation that I had the opportunity to actually change the industry. If I could teach others how to do this, I could transform and help reinvent and rethink commercial real estate brokerage where it didn't have to be ruthless, where you could just build success by helping others. And I decided in 2012 that I was going to do that. And I left my old firm, and they kind of patted me on the head and said, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And just launched out. And we decided, Deb, that we were going to do it very boldly. I had some amazing founders that joined me, and we decided we were going to spare we were going to be bold. We weren't going to be fearful. You know, when I had that epiphany moment, I made a list. I sat down and I said, okay, if I'm going to create a firm that's going to change the world, how do I create it? Like, I've never created it before. What am I supposed to do?
You always worked for someone.
Exactly. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I thought of myself as a real estate guy. But now I had this vision and this passion. And so I made a list of what a utopian commercial real estate firm would look like. How do we eliminate all the things that makes commercial real estate culture suck?
Right.
And out of that, we created what is today our 15 core operating principles that guide everything we do. And so I left the old firm and launched my firm in January of 2013. And I still remember, Deb, you talk about critical moments. We developed the site. It was ready to launch. It was January of 2013. The web developer had just sent me an email with the final link asking for my approval to go live. And I remember the mouse hovering over the head. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I better go back and read this site one more time just to make sure.
Right.
And so I read it, and it's just filled with love and service and culture and do the right thing. And I'm thinking through the lens of what would other commercial real estate brokers think. And I think, oh my gosh, we are so over the top. People are they're
going to think you guys are nuts.
If they thought we were nuts before, now they're really going to think we're nuts. And it was like this decision moment where my finger's hovering, and I'm like, screw it. That's what we are. Boom, send. And we've never looked back. And so, originally we thought we were going to appeal to about 20% of the population, and about 80% would think we're nuts. Now we found that it's actually the opposite. About 80% of people really resonate. I think everybody kind of knows that commercial real estate is broken and that the culture is unsustainable. And there's a lot of other industries like that as well. I mean, and so, our message is, look, if we can show, today we're the largest firm of our kind in the state, one of the faster growing firms in the country. If we can show that you don't have to be a ruthless prick to win, if we can show that by loving and serving other people, you can create extraordinary success. Right. I think everybody kind of knows you should love and serve and help. Right. And we all know how to do that in our families or, with our communities, our social clubs or our churches or whatever. But then we go into the business world and we have this belief, no. Right. Everybody's scratching and clawing. So I got to put on my tough suit and I got to go fight to win. And so all I'm saying is I believe now, after reinventing myself around it, that the same things that work in your family, the love and service and putting others first and selflessness, actually create long-term sustainable success, even in one of the most ruthless industries in the world. So today, we're still referral only. Clients flock to us because they want us. They actually, here's a concept. How about you could actually trust your real estate broker?
Oh my gosh. You mean they're not out to screw me?
How about you had somebody who's actually not conflicted, that's trying to work multiple sides of transactions to maximize their commission? What if you just had somebody that worked just for you, that was an expert, that wanted to help you in every way possible, right? So, I mean, we people call my business model inefficient a lot when they first come in, because they hear that we do 3 to 4 times the amount of work per client project that our competitors do, and they go, that's insane. Like that
makes no sense.
That makes no sense, Jonathan, that you can't survive like that. And our model is, no, you don't get it. It's actually the opposite. We go so deep and so far above and beyond for our clients and partners. And again, we're not perfect, but the effort and the intentionality and the service is there. It's like the feeling of, wow, I cannot believe this person does this much for me, is the goal for every single client of Kaiser. And when that happens, people want to go tell all their friends about it. It's so extraordinary. So by serving people, you're turning them into ambassadors for your cause. Right. And that's literally our business model, is everybody we touch, we try to serve the crap out of them, love them, help them. What do you need? Always available, go above and beyond. It's not about us. And those people so appreciate it that they go tell other people, so appreciate it once they engage with us, and it just spreads.
Right. And we all know, and we've talked about it before in the program, about the power of word of mouth. We can see ads, whether it's a billboard, TV, we can read websites, all these various things where the business says we have the greatest product, service, whatever in the world. And you're like, well, of course you're going to say that.
Right.
You're not going to say, like I said, you're not going to say we're fine, we're average, we're okay. We're the greatest in the world. And so you're like, yeah. But when someone else, even somebody we don't know, says, hey, this is great, we're like, cool. I mean, that's why review sites do so well. I don't care that I don't know those 500 people that did the Yelp review. They liked it. But then of course it gets better and better the closer the relationship is. If someone I truly know and trust tells me, hey, this is a great organization to work with, I'm not even going to check out anybody else. And I mean, that's the important thing is we don't. We're like, oh, okay. It's funny. My neighbors a couple of days ago, who did we use for our HVAC? Because they knew ours had died and theirs was getting ready to die. We're in the houses have all been built about the same time. So I, more than happy to tell them who we used. And I said, they're good people. I said we were, and now I met them in a networking event, so I've known them for a while, but I said, they won't try and screw you. They won't try and upsell you. I said, they're really good people. I said, now it might cost more, but it's worth it. I mean, that does wonders for somebody when you have those advocates out there for you.
What I love about what you just said, Deb, is that at the end of the day, every interaction is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it's an opportunity for many future interactions. Right. And it's an opportunity to unlock people's contacts and networks. Yet instead of viewing it that way, people view it as, how do I maximize my own personal gain in this one interaction? Right. How many times have we all had an experience where we cannot stand the person we have to interact with? Somebody comes out to your home, somebody that you have to deal with at whatever, right? If you have a negative experience, that becomes viral too. Right. So most people...
Oh yeah, we're back on Facebook going, tick, 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 tick. Mm-hmm.
Most people spend all their time polluting their own pond, and then they wonder why there's not very many fish in it. And right. So, and again, we are not perfect. In fact, we don't even try to be perfect. If you look at our 15 core operating principles, those are aspirational. I mean, one of the things that I do is I started doing this recently. I send my team after each day where I was and wasn't aligned with our 15 core operating principles, where I hit the mark and where I missed the mark. And then I say, hey, but I got blind spots, so tell me where I missed it.
Right.
Because it's so critical for me that as an organization designed around these principles, that we actually live them, that they're actually real for us. Because as we scale, finding those people that are aligned becomes critical to maintaining and growing the culture that we've created.
Right. You know, and it's hard because, as you said, we are kind of brought up with the philosophy of what's in it for me.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't, you know, when we're little kids, you know, it's like, well, I'll give you this toy, but you got to give me one of your toys back. You know, and then we just kind of go from there. And we are, you know, whether we're brought up in a faith-based household or not, you know, then you get the opposite too, you know, of the, you have to be loving, you have to be caring. And so, you know, we get confused really early.
Yes.
You know, and then it is a competition. You know, and I always kind of chuckle at the people that, you know, well, we're going to have the soccer games, but we're not going to keep score.
No.
Everybody's keeping score. I mean, you know, let's be honest. They're keeping score, and but there's certainly ways to do it where it's not a negative. You know, recently, you know, we had the women's soccer, and you know, and the U.S. team won, and that was great. But there were some hiccups along the way. You know, like where they were really, really trouncing the other team. You know, they won like 13-1, and even when they had a huge lead, they still were doing hey, you know, we're great, and people thought that was poor sportsmanship. And you know, now they can't dial it back on playing. You know, I'm a big sports fan, and I know that the second you dial it back and not try as hard, it's when you get hurt. I mean, you know, there's all sorts of things, and so you know, you don't, and it does show a lack of respect for the other team. But when you're still really, really jumping up and down and saying, hey, we're, you know, it gives that bad taste in your mouth. But you know, so it is kind of bizarre how we're brought up that, you know, it is, you know, we do have to be better than the other person or better than the other team. And so then we carry that into our businesses. You know,
I think a lot of people have this idea, Deb, that they don't want to be taken advantage of. I certainly have that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's driven by this kind of, my brother's taking my toy away, like you were just saying. Mm-hmm. And my mindset is, what I noticed as I started doing this was that everybody was going to networking events and they had their little spiel dialed in and they were ready to kind of give their 30-minute elevator speech. And the reality is they were so busy waiting for their turn to talk that they weren't listening, they weren't engaged with the other person. And if everybody's waiting to pitch themselves, and if everybody also, so let me give you a quick story. So I went to this company one time. I was explaining to them what we were up to. This is early on in the company. And I said, this is how we serve, and we serve first and all this stuff. And they said, Jonathan, we have the exact same business model as you. And I went, cool, tell me more. And they said, every one of our people out in the community that help us, we help them back. And all of our clients, we serve them immensely. And I said, no offense, but you actually have the opposite business model of us. You're waiting for other people to act first, and then you reciprocate. I said, what I'm describing is the opposite of that, which is no expectation, no guarantee. you serve first, and that's how you unlock. Because if everybody else, Adam Grant wrote this amazing book called Give and Take. And in it, he describes people as givers, matchers, and takers.
Mm-hmm.
And he describes how takers are only a very small percentage of the population.
Right.
Most people are matchers, and then givers are the other smaller percentage. And so if you just look at the numbers, if everybody's if matchers are the majority and you want to unlock their relationships, just strategically, forget about, this isn't squishy. Like I'm not a guy that's hugging trees and talking about like, just do it because it's right. I'm saying this is real practical business strategy.
Right.
If other people are waiting to help until they're helped, why don't you just help first?
Yeah.
Right? And then when you do, you create amazing opportunities for them to learn how to serve, because now they're serving you back.
Right.
You create relationships, you create all these things versus hoarding and having a scarcity mindset and saying, this is mine, quid pro quo. You give me one, I'll give you one. Like when you're a kid with your brother, give me that toy, I'll give you that toy.
Right. And there are still times where you do something and you don't get anything back. Okay, fine. Yeah, learn from that. Or remember, it just might not be immediate. I tell people that's one of the things why and this is purely anecdotal, why I think sometimes women are much better networkers. Because we take all that information, we file it away. She does this and she does this and she does this. And I, might not be able to help anybody right then, but 5 years down the road, I'm like, wait a minute. I remember that this person does this. And then I do the introduction. And sometimes it is more with, men, what can you do for me now? Like I said, purely anecdotal, but I do think sometimes women are much more, we do listen more and we try to put those things together. Maybe that's because we're the nurturers.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do all of those things. But, the hard part is if it seems like we're always the ones doing the giving, then it's hard.
I think that's the key is, in that same book, Give and Take by Adam Grant, he describes how givers are both at the least and the most successful end of the spectrum.
Right.
And and he solves for why. And the why, and put simply, is the ones that are strategic givers are the most successful, and the ones that are just unable to say no, those are the least successful.
Right.
So no way, shape, or form, this is important. Don't miss this. Service is a choice.
Right.
As I've grown this business, sometimes people would say, well, Jonathan, you're the service guy, so you have to help me. And I go, I don't have to help anything. I get to choose. Otherwise, it's not service. Otherwise, it's a mandate. It's a job.
It's an obligation.
Requirement. It's an obligation. So that's kind of the first part. The second part is, going back to your last point, is I think, and again, I'm not the expert on this, but I believe from my personal life experience that the whole idea of I'm expecting something back is the problem. So for me, the shift that I write about in the book and how I got there and how I teach my people is the idea is I'm going to trust the universe that somehow all these acts of service will come back. And sometimes the way it comes back is through the most random, unexpected thing. And so anytime that you're expecting something back, that's not really an act of service.
Right.
That's, if anything, it's creepy because you're sort of like, you're pre-anticipating a response, and if they don't, then you're upset.
Right.
That's almost worse than saying a very clearly negotiated, I'll give you this and you give me that. So the idea is, if you really want to reinvent yourself around selfless service, which we talk about how to do that in the book, how to create a culture around that in the book, but if you really want to do it, it starts with this idea of you have to let go, which is the hardest part. You have to let go of the expectation that the individual or individuals that you serve, you got to get something back from.
Right.
But you also have to balance that like everything else, right? I call it dry rain. There's two sides to everything. Seems like dry rain would be impossible. So on one hand, I'm saying, don't worry about if it comes back. But on the other hand, don't just be dominated by takers who are going to suck you dry, never give anything back. And, because at the end of the day, my goal is impact, right? So the way I think about it is, where will every act of service have the maximum impact?
Right.
I only have so much time. And so could I go down the street and could I stand on the street corner and could everybody that walks by or drives by, I could hold a sign that says, how can I help you? And no matter who it is, whatever they ask, I could do. That's one option. And yeah, I should do that. I'd probably get on the news. But that's not what I'm describing here. What I'm describing is, for anybody listening, look at your current business and whatever meetings you already have scheduled, whatever interactions you already have coming, when you approach those, instead of in that meeting thinking, what do I got to get out of this? What do I got to get out of this? What do I got to get out of this? I hope they shut up so I can talk soon. Spend that whole time really listening, really focusing on them. And for me, a meeting is not successful unless I identify 3 definitive ways that I can help that person. And then when you actually do them right after the meeting, you blow people away because nobody's doing that. So when people act like today, because our company's had so much success, people act like I got some secret knowledge. I'm telling you, man, you look back over time, some of the greatest minds in history, from Aristotle and Socrates to Christ to Muhammad Ali, everybody says the same thing. They all say, serve first, give, help. And so it's just a function of saying, okay, if that's possible, then in my day, whatever meetings I already have, I'm just going to pour myself into that person. I'm going to love on them. I'm going to figure out ways I can serve them. I'm going to ask for nothing in return. And in my experience, that done over time creates extraordinary success. Now, the caveat is, for all of you who are just looking to make $1 million tomorrow, don't do this. I'm not saying this is instant gratification. In fact, I'm intentionally saying it's not. This is for people that want long-term sustainable success, where they don't have to wake up, in commercial real estate, most people have to wake up January 1st. They got to go do it all over again, clean their gun, and it's time to go start over. For us, every January, we got stuff rolling in, and our job is just to do a great job of that, and then to make sure we're continuing to serve in the community.
Right. And you mentioned one of the things that I think is absolutely critical to this, and that is that there are times you definitely have to say no. And whether it's they've asked you, often it's for a time commitment, hey, can you volunteer, can you help us do that? Or it could be money. I mean, look at how many times every day we get asked for a donation for great worthy causes. But let's be honest, we're not Bill Gates. We can't just write every check that we want to write. So it comes back to thinking, okay, where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? Literally, and same thing with not volunteering and all of those things. And it's hard. I mean, because people are really good at guilt trips. What do you mean you can't serve on that committee? You've served for 5 years, or you're so good. You're the only one that can do this. We know that you would do this, and and sure, that's always great to hear that. We all, isn't that cool? But sometimes we really do. The best thing for everybody involved is to say no. I mean, if you know that your time is going to be stretched and you're not going to be able to give 100%, then you really should be saying no, because then they can go find someone who will be able to give 100%.
Yeah. Maybe
it's that you say, okay, I can't do that, but I can do this, and things like that. And saying no really is one of the hardest things. We're talking off the air. One of my favorite people is Bob Berg, and you refer to him in your book.
Yep.
And he has the go-giver mentality and philosophy, and he is an absolutely delightful man, and had him on the program a couple of times, and I remember asking him one time, but Bob, how do you not get taken advantage of? And he said, that's the thing. He said, you have to know where you're not going to get taken advantage of. And sometimes that is hard, and there are people who will say, nope, fine, I'm never going to have anything to do with you. Okay, then they weren't the right people to be dealing with anyway. And so, you have to know those things so you can give, but you don't overgive.
Yeah, I think I don't even know if I have anything to add. That was so beautifully stated. Like, I completely agree. I think that having discernment, right? If you look at, take your kids as an example. Right? For those of you who have kids out there, I have 4 kids. So Are there a lot of causes that are really, really important out in the world? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything that's more important than making sure that you're raising your kids? Not to me.
No. Mm-hmm.
So if you have that same mindset of it's easy to say no when it's your kids. Nope, can't do it because I got a family thing I got to do. It's applying that same thing and realizing that, this isn't about doing good for doing good. We already all know that. We're either living that way or we're not. Right. This is not what I'm describing. Mm-hmm. I'm describing a different way of doing business, which in that little sentence is the word business. So we're in business, and in business, you have to be smart, you have to be competitive, you have to be strategic, you have to think ahead, you have to outwit the competition, right? So all of those things are factored into this. So all I'm saying is, if you don't already know that doing good is the right thing to do, mm-hmm. you're probably not alive, right?
So and let's be honest, we lost them 5 minutes into the program.
Totally. They don't. Yeah, exactly. This is for people that are trying to reconcile this idea of, I wish I didn't have to be ruthless, mm-hmm. but I also don't know how to, like the most common question I get is, I don't know how to make money off of this, because how do I not get taken advantage of? That's the most common thing. And in fact, for me, that was my biggest question coming in too, is especially having been raised the way I was and seeing how poor we were. I mean, I remember so many times, Deb, where we would sit around, my dad would call a family meeting, and we lived in a very small house in West Phoenix, which is not a great area, and our mortgage was $600 a month. And my dad multiple times would call us in, say, we don't have enough money for rent or for our mortgage payment, and if God doesn't provide, we might lose our house. And so we'd literally be praying in the living room, and I just thought, this is insane. Like, if this is really how God
we live like this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if this is how God takes care of the people that work for him, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not what I'm describing. What I'm describing is how do we as business people reconcile the deep down calling within us to do the right thing, to not cut corners, to not take advantage of people, to not be ruthless, to really serve and love other people while still advancing, making money, building successful businesses. And what I'm trying to say is, morality aside, this has nothing to do with religion or morality or any of that stuff. This is pure, hard-hitting, practical business wisdom, which is the more people that you serve strategically, right? Pick the people that if you served and loved them, don't just pick anybody.
Right.
Basically say, who are the top 50 people that if I blew them away, would be able to send me more business than I could ever handle. And then get to work blowing those 50 people away with service. Right? Then watch over time what happens. Don't have expectations, but don't quit and just keep serving and giving and giving. Over time, it's almost impossible to resist. Right. There's only so much. Now,
it almost guilts them. They're like, oh, I have to refer back to Jonathan.
Exactly. But again, it's I don't want people to do it out of guilt. I want them to do it out of wanting to. Right. Now,
yeah, because they know how well you're going to treat the people that work with you.
Exactly. So here's one other very important distinction for those who are listening and really trying to put this into practice. This is not about, you mentioned nonprofits and all that stuff. This is not about money. This is not about donating money to people.
Right.
This is not about not being able to say no to that yet another phone call or email that says, hey, I need you to contribute to this amazing cause. What this is about saying yes to the things of service. We all know how to serve. So why do we hold back on knowing how to love and serve people when it really matters? So if you have a big prospect you're pursuing, instead of thinking about how do I sell them and how do I tell them and how great I am and put this amazing PowerPoint together, think, what does this person really need and how can I serve them well in advance of them having a need? So by the time they have a need, I'm the automatic choice. There's already a relationship there. And it's a relationship built on you doing something for them, not on you trying to sell them. And I have so many relationships with people, Deb, in the community that I am the farthest thing from a perfect dude. I mean, the opposite of that. But you know what people all know about me is that if they need something, they can call me, and if I can help them, I will. And if I can't, I'll be very clear. I won't dodge it. I'll say, oh, can't help you with that today. Or not going to be doing that. I'm very clear on my no's, but they all know that if I have it in my power to help them, I'm going to do it. And so we created this community of people where we all try to help each other. So and it's not just me. Like, I'm just the guy talking about it. The only reason Kaiser is successful the way that it is because so many people in the community have helped us get here.
Right.
So this is not a look at me, I'm out serving everybody and, be like me. No, I'm just saying, as a ruthless dude, I thought that was the only way. I found a different way. I built a company around it. And now my whole mission is I want to change the business world, Deb. I want the smartest and brightest and most upwardly mobile people in the future graduating from the best schools to really believe at their core that they don't have to go be ruthless, that the more people they help, the more people they love and serve, the more success over time that they're going to have. And if that happens, I'll consider myself a success. And that's why we started the Kaiser Institute, because so many people would come through Kaiser and say, wow, this place is unbelievable. I've never seen a culture like this in commercial real estate ever. How do you guys do this? And so I was answering, how do we do this? And it would get sucked into more conversations and more conversations. And so I said, you know what, we need to create an institute to train and empower and certify the next generation of selfless leaders. So in the future, we're going to have a certification process like you'd have for Six Sigma or getting an MBA. We're going to have that kind of thing for selfless leadership so that people can go into organizations, not just have it on their resume, but actually make companies more profitable, more sustainable, have people be happier within organizations where these people are impacting them.
Right. And it's funny, one of the things that I was thinking about as you were saying this is everybody, or not everybody, most everybody absolutely hates the thought of selling. We don't want to be salesmen. We don't want to do all of that. And maybe that's because we shouldn't be. We need to be doing it this way instead. Because then we're not in your face saying, you need to buy this from me. This is the greatest thing in the world. And nobody else can provide it for you. And, ew, he's really bad. Because that's just not what we should be doing. We should be giving as opposed to selling.
Yeah. It couldn't agree more. And that's the whole point. I mean, we have, and by the way, we give a lot of stuff away on our website, ruthless.com. So go to lots of free resources. We have a self-reinvention roadmap where we basically give you everything you need to start working on this within your own organization. And we have workshops and all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, the idea is very simple. It's how do you take this from concept? There's probably a lot of you on this call going, I kind of get it. Like, that makes sense. But I don't know how to take that and actually make it work in my. So first step would be read the book, because I give a lot. Like, I give so much examples, and I try to make it so that if you wanted just to go do it yourself, you take my book, read it, highlight it, and go create your own culture. But then we also have all these free resources on ruthlessbook.com that will enable you to do that better. So I'd invite you, anybody who would like, this is our mission. We want to change the business world. This is bigger than commercial real estate brokerage. This is bigger than business. This is an idea that I believe will be the dominant idea in the future if more and more people lean in and start adopting this kind of service-based mindset.
Right. And you mentioned the resources, and it's, oh my gosh, we're coming up against the top of the hour, and it's funny, I just texted, I know, and I said we're going long, but it's we have the 15 core principles that we didn't even talk about. We're going to talk about one, but you do have so many resources, and I love downloading them. One of the things, and this is always fascinating to me, is you have a book list. And I downloaded that and all these various things, but it is something, we want people to buy the book. We want people to do all of that, but we got to talk about the duck. What the heck? Sure. Why do you have a duck sitting back there?
So I love that question. So this is our duck. The duck is our mascot, and we have hundreds, if not thousands. I haven't counted them recently, but I think they're in the thousands now, of little mini ducks all around the office.
He's a big duck.
Yeah, that's a big one. We have all the little mini ones all around the office. But the idea of the duck is simple.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, one of our principles is, number 9 is we are lighthearted and playful in all that we do.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds us we're in a serious industry with a lot of people trying to take each other out at the knees. And so while we are safe and love and service within the culture we have created here, we're an oasis within an industry that's the opposite. So it's not easy to do what we do. And so part of it is reminding ourselves, hey, life is simple, fun, and easy, right? It's not that big of a deal. This is a reminder. Right? If you think about what a duck represents, here it is, kind of looks like it's just floating across the surface of the water, but underneath its little feet are paddling. So that's kind of the idea here too is, we're working really, really hard, but we're chill and cool and having a good time on the surface. There's also just some cool things about ducks that make ducks super. So for anybody who'd like the free resource on our website, we have a download, and it's in the book as well, ruthlessbook.com, where you can learn more about what we use for the books. But if you look at it, we talk about how it's representative of fun, relaxed and worry-free while working our butts off, true teamwork. If you ever watch ducks flying in a V, it's unbelievable how they work as a team.
Right.
Selfless leadership, the lead duck. I mean, talk about leaders eat last. That duck has the hardest job out in front. Extraordinary effort leading to success. If you ever watch a duck taking off for flight, it's unbelievable. That's kind of what it's like to create the selfless culture and selfless service. The ducks are always pruning themselves, pruning each other. And so we have all this mindset around ducks. As worries rain down on us, the down, it just washes off of them. So they're worry-free. And so for us, it's a reminder that while we're in a super serious industry with a very serious mission of changing the business world, it's all good. Everything's fine. Have a good time. Enjoy the ride, because at the end of the day, all you get is the ride. And that's something I don't talk a lot about, because I really want it to be about practical business experience. But most commercial real estate brokers are miserable.
Right.
I know I was, and I felt trapped, just like I described earlier. So here you have this really cool industry for the most part, where there's no limit on how much you can make. It's all about how hard you work and how creative you are. Yet you have such a culture that you have alcoholism and early deaths and stress.
Tons of stress.
Right? And so it's like all of that is not very sustainable either. So how do you get the good, the success, the money, the autonomy to do whatever you want without having to be a part of that culture? And so that's why we're building a global firm. Right? We're going to be a billion-dollar company that completely reinvents commercial real estate. And part of the reason I wrote the book is I'm looking for leaders who want to help us build offices in other markets that really resonate with this message and say, man, that guy's crazy, but I kind of like that. Could I be a part of that? And the answer is yes. We're looking for like-minded leaders who can help us build and establish a global brand. The other thing is, there's a lot of company CEOs and executives out there that are sick and tired of not having somebody that they can really trust on the commercial real estate side. And so we're also, we're looking constantly for those leaders that would love to have a real partnership, that would love to have someone who actually you could trust. If you say, hey, of all the people in your life, who are your top 3 that you trust the most? If somebody says my commercial real estate broker, it's like laughable. Like people,
who? What?
What? Like, what do you mean? And so our goal is to make that not laughable and have it be that the very first person they say is, man, my broker at Kaiser is unbelievable. And then the Institute, right? For those of you who say, man, I wish I could have this culture within my company. How could how could you help me do this? 1, read the book, download the book, buy it for your free employees. We have lots of free resources, and we also have workshops. So if you want to engage with that, go to ruthlessbook.com, and we'll be able to help you engage and get you involved in the Institute so that you can be doing this yourself within your own respective organizations.
Right. And we've talked about it several times, and it's the fact that we as business people, we think we absolutely have to be ruthless.
Totally.
And okay, or maybe not absolutely and totally ruthless, but we have to always be looking out for ourselves. And our business has to be successful. And I think part of the reason we have so much stress is we're that way in our work life. And then we have our personal life where it's totally different. And our body and our mind and our hearts are going, wait a minute, we're very confused. And it's funny, I was one of the videos that you had on your website, part of it, and I stopped, I played it back, I ran it again, and then I wrote it down. At the end of the day, It's just business. And I think that's maybe one of the things that people really need to strike home about is, you know what, it's not the end of the world. Sure, things might go bad. Things might go really, really bad. But if we're not feeling good about what we're doing in here, and let's be honest, in our heads too, then it really doesn't matter. And I love all the 15 concepts. And it's, we're going to go over. Pay attention, folks. We're just going to go a little bit long. One of the ones that you talk about, and it actually, somebody's going to think, wait a minute, it's the opposite of what you're saying, is we expect to win every single time. So briefly, tell us how that can even coexist with all this.
I love that. And that's another example of dry rain, where people that had this idea that I'm saying some squishy thing, which is, zero strategy, just give everything away and hope. That's not what I'm saying. Our mindset is we expect to win every single time, period.
Right.
We do this because we think and act as we truly are, the best in the business. No one delivers better service or representation than our team. We are the best, and we honor ourselves, our partners, and our clients by being and doing our best. So what does that even mean, right? How does that play out? Here's how it is for me. The mindset is, if I'm sitting across from someone, and I effectively share with them how I'm going to be able to help them abundantly above and beyond. And then I demonstrate that, right? There's no one else that's going to have the commitment to their success than I am, or people within Kaiser are. And so if people experience that, why would they ever choose anything else? So it's this idea of go so abundantly above and beyond for people that you eliminate the choice, because you so clearly acted as if already and demonstrated to them what most people say, well, here's all the things we're going to do. We just do. Right? There's an amazing book by Patrick Lencioni called Getting Naked. And he describes, it's a business book for those who haven't read it. And he describes how this amazing little consulting firm really grew by just going in and starting helping people. So it's this idea of, if that person across the table really gets and has seen and experienced how committed we are to them, why wouldn't we win? How could they choose anyone else? So it's this mindset, not of like we're cocky. It's this mindset of commitment to doing so much for everyone that they'd be crazy to hire somebody else.
Right. And then when they go to refer to somebody, you'd be crazy to not go with them, because they, it really does come back to the fact that, what we were saying at the start, so many companies are okay with being average, with being okay. And so when somebody asks, hey, who you want to work with? I mean, we don't even always refer to somebody because, it's an okay job. Yeah.
And you don't want to have your reputation potentially slighted by doing it. Yeah.
And so we remember, and here's maybe the sad fact of life. We remember the ones that we never, ever are going to refer to. But we also really remember those who went above and beyond, because it is unusual. So the key is, folks, because it's so unusual, don't you want to put yourself there? Don't you want to be those standout people that everybody remembers? And in a good way, not in a bad way.
Yeah. And what's really amazing, Deb, and I love what you just said, what's really amazing is that if anybody listening, and I know you have a big following, so it's a lot of people in their cars or at home. But if you really think, if you just get quiet for 30 seconds and think as I speak, who are those people in my life that have done so much for me that they instantly pop into mind? There was, when I was young, there was a guy named Steve Messner. And Steve Messner, for whatever reason, was just nice to a young guy. Right? Here I am, this crazy missionary kid that was not well adjusted to the U.S. And he took me under his wing, and he believed in me, and he would hang out with me, which was not a lot of people wanted to. And I will forever remember him. And he always has a special place in my heart. And if he ever needed anything, all he'd have to do is call me.
Right.
And I think if we think, there's not that many people that so quickly come to mind like Steve does to me. And the question then is, how do we put ourselves in that category for as many people as possible? Well, it's very simple. You serve them. You go beyond for them. You help them. And here's the other thing. What if there's a problem? Business isn't perfect. Life's not perfect. What do people know when they come to my firm? They know, which is very unusual in our space. If there's a problem, you call me and I will fix it.
Yes.
Give you your money back. Like, I got your back. I'll be standing there working with you on it, not running for the hills, blaming you, getting attorneys involved. It's like, I'm here to help, which means in the toughest situations, when things don't go as planned, if we did drop the ball or if somebody on their team dropped the ball, we're not playing, who done it. We're not trying to point fingers of blame. We're here to serve. And some of my best clients are people that saw in the tough moments how I stood in the gap with them and selflessly served them to my own detriment sometimes, if it wasn't even my fault. And they go, that's my guy for life. And so people have this mindset of like, okay, but that's not practical. That doesn't make sense. Like, I need to get on to the next one. Real estate has this funnel mindset. Put everything in the funnel, a little bit comes at the end. Next churn. And mine's like, nope, slow down, serve that person, help them, go above and beyond, and then do the next one.
Right. And, the point we're making, folks, is that works in any industry. And that really is the thing, is you can make it work in whatever industry you are in. It works. And whether you own your own business or you are an employee. Now, if you're an employee, you might start getting a little pushback if you start doing some of these things, but it really does work no matter where you are. What can you do to go above and beyond, to help, to give without expecting something in return?
Totally. And I would not to be confrontational, but I would challenge that employee thing. I think that in any situation, right, you can't overstep your bounds. So I'm not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that so many times people withhold because they're worried, upset, or whatever. So if you're an employee and your boss is a jerk, which happens all the time, my mindset is, how do you selflessly serve the hardest people in your world? So when I speak, I give a challenge. I call it the 3-part challenge. You want to dip your toe in the water with the strategy, you want to kind of do it, or you want to go all in. So here's the challenge. 1 a week, selfless service acts. This is toe in the water. You want to just try it out, just do it. Okay. 1 person, selflessly help them, ask for nothing in return, just anybody. Make it the easiest one you want and do it 1 a week. Second challenge is find somebody who you don't really like that much and help them, right? Or maybe there's someone that you've had some issues with in the past, so it feels less fun to do it, or maybe you're with them right now.
I don't want to help them. No.
Yeah, that's an amazing opportunity for you to learn how to serve, and you'll see transformation in the relationship. And then the third one, which is the hardest one, which is what you addressed, is your boss. Because so many times it is challenging for people to serve people that they're in their minds an inferior position with. But in my opinion, by serving those around you, especially the ones that are hardest to serve, you create the most extraordinary opportunities. I think you would be amazed at how that relationship with your boss, with the person you don't like, how that transforms just by you being selfless. And I think you'll find much more opportunity for you within that company versus constantly being at war.
Right. Okay, I suppose we've gone long enough.
Darn it.
And literally, we could keep going for hours on this, which just means we have to have you on again. But the book is so new that as we record this, you don't even have a copy of it, but hold up the mock-up, because it is called You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win. And see, folks, they're crossing out ruthless. And so, please make sure that you get that. Go to ruthlessbook.com. But, how do they connect with you, Jonathan? How do they find and connect with you?
Well, the best way to do it is go to ruthlessbook.com. And through that, if you want to book me to speak, I do a lot of speaking gigs, do a lot of workshops. And if you want to just connect with our firm, it's Keyser.com, KEYSER.com. If you want to engage on the commercial real estate side, if you're a broker listening and you're going, hey, maybe there's a possibility for me to engage with your firm, call me, we'll help. If you're a client prospect that said, hey, I need a real estate broker versus the crap that I've had to deal with, call us. Mm-hmm. And if you're someone who says, I want this for my company, mm-hmm. I want this culture for my company, go to ruthlessbook.com, download the free tool, the self-reinvention guide, and call us, and we'll be able to help you get on your way of creating this culture for yourself around success,
yes,
selfless service within your own organization.
Most definitely, and I challenge everyone, read the book, look at the resources and just see how, even if you're just implementing some of them, how much better it will make your life. And with that, we're going to close. I am Deb Creer. I really have been having an absolutely wonderful, delightful time talking with Jonathan Kaiser. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.